We are in the thick of the summer right now, and weeds are everywhere. We've had a great amount of rain throughout the first half of this summer, and weeds are popping up because of that. But I want to talk about some of the hardest weeds to kill here in the South in the summertime. There are so many weeds that come out in the summers here, which is a list of too many to mention in one video here, but there are some specific weeds that are very hard to kill in the heat of the summer. And I wanted to mention a few of them and maybe some tips and tricks to help with killing them and getting rid of them. And you could be seeing a lot of these weeds in your yard. So I wanted to point out a few. The first of which is Dallas grass. Dallas grass is a very hard weed to control. It grows from a really thick and deep root ball. Of course, this is right next to a highway here, but is from a chemical perspective, it's very hard to kill and control. The best time of year, if you're going to use some sort of weed control product on Dallas grass, the best time of year to go about that is in the winter time when the grass is dormant. That way there's no risk of damaging your green Bermuda grass right here. But you can really raise the product rate and go to town on that and get rid of it. So fall and winter is the best time to really go about Dallas grass from a weed control perspective. But honestly, just a shovel and a bucket of sand I think is the best way to get rid of Dallas grass, because it has such a deep root ball. Just dig it out and then fill that hole with sand, especially if it's Bermuda grass, because then the Bermuda should grow through that sand fairly quickly. And you may have a yard like this where just this green looks great. You think you don't have a weed control, a weed problem, but then you get down here like this and you just see this huge clump right here. And that's usually how Dallas grass grows, just in these clumps like this. And that's why I think a shovel is the best way to get rid of it. It's always in small little sections like this. Well, I say that, well, look at that. That's all Dallas grass too. So if you have this problem, if Dallas grass is just completely taken over your yard, then you do want to go about this from a chemical perspective. And just one treatment, spraying on Dallas grass, depending on what product you're using, one treatment is never going to be enough. You're going to want to come back 2-3 times, maybe 4 times to really control Dallas grass. And that's why I wanted to mention Dallas grass in this video. We're talking about hard summertime weeds to kill. One treatment of anything, even if you use Roundup, it's not going to do a good job on Dallas grass. I think Roundup is the best product for Dallas grass. If you use Roundup, make sure you spray it right around the crown of the plant there. You don't want to damage the grass around it. However, Bermuda does a great job of coming back if it is sprayed with Roundup. But just make sure you focus right there on the crown of the plant. And you see right here, this particular weed, this is the crown, just kind of right there in the middle of the plant. And just hit that with your Roundup. So I'm using my Z-Spray machine here where I can fertilize and spray weeds at the same time. But on the topic of Dallas grass, well, with a normal weed, usually you just spray over it and just kind of give it a little wafting once or twice, just like that. So with normal weeds, that's typically how you spray. But with Dallas grass, you really want to focus on the crown of the plant. So I'm not afraid to get down close to the plant and just soak it. Try not to get too much excessive product on the grass itself, but you do have to be more aggressive when spraying your Dallas grass. Now, if you were using Roundup, you do want to just kind of do just what I did and get down close to the plant. Make sure you don't get a lot of it on the grass itself. You may see some damage in the Bermuda grass surrounding the plant there, but that's fine. You really just want to get rid of the weed. And here's a lot more Dallas grass. This is a better look at what Dallas grass looks like when you let it grow. This hasn't been mowed in a while here. So this is such a thick plant, which is why it's so hard to kill. But this is what it looks like when it comes to seed head. It's unlike Bahia grass, which Bahia grass is different. It has the peace sign seed head at the top, whereas Dallas grass is alternated like this. The seed head is not like a peace sign, it is alternating. So that's how you can tell the difference between Dallas grass and other weeds is by the seed head when it gets tall like this. But otherwise, just get down on the crown of the plant with whatever product you're spraying. If it's a lot like this, you really do just want to try to spray it with something to get rid of it. If it were just one or two, then I would go with the shovel method. Now, nut sedge is another weed that's really hard to control throughout the summer. As you can see here, there's a lot of this nut sedge growing here. There's different types of sedges. There's yellow nut sedge, purple nut sedge. Kalinga is also a type of sedge. So I'm going to group all of that together here. But sedges only grow in wet conditions, so areas that are watered excessively, you'll have a lot of sedges. So sedges are actually fairly easy to kill, but they're hard to control. So that sounds confusing. So what do I mean when I say that? Well, there are products out there that work great on sedges. There's a number of them, just too many to even name off. But the reason they're hard to control, you can kill the nut sedge that's out there in the yard, but a week later you may have a different patch pop up right here. Well, that's because nut sedge is not really affected by pre-emergent. So if you pay a lawn care service to come out and spray pre-emergent in your yard throughout the fall and winter, and then you get nut sedge every summer, that doesn't mean that your lawn care company is doing a poor job. It just means that nut sedge is not really controlled with pre-emergent. So if the conditions are conducive for nut sedge, then you're going to have that every summer. And what I mean by that is nut sedge only grows in wet conditions. So if you water your yard regularly, or if you're over watering especially, you will have nut sedge. So really the best way to get rid of that is to back down on your watering habits. Again, the nut sedge is fairly easy to kill once it comes out, but there's no stopping a new patch of it from growing a couple of feet away from that. So I wanted to just mention nut sedge here in this category of summertime weeds that are hard to control. Another summer weed that is very hard to control is chamber bitter. A lot of people call this mimosa because it looks just like a small mimosa tree that's growing in your yard, but this is called chamber bitter, and it's a broadleaf weed. And although there are some excellent products out here that work well on this, usually most broadleaf weed herbicides will work on this to get rid of it. You're going to see more of it popping up as the heat and humidity rise throughout the summers. So a lot of times if you spray chamber bitter with a product, a broadleaf weed product, it'll turn it colors, it'll make it sick, and then you can come in and mow it, and that's the key to getting rid of this. So you really need to be mowing on a regular basis to make sure your chamber bitter gets out of here for good. But the mistake a lot of homeowners make, and this is just a common area here, this is not a house, but this is not mowed on a regular basis. So although I just sprayed this chamber bitter here, if this area is not mowed here within a week or two, then this chamber bitter is just going to stay here. It might yellow up, it might get sick, but if it's not mowed, it's not going to go anywhere. So mowing is it's a necessary thing to do to get rid of weeds. So you can't just spray a weed and then it dissipate a week or two later. So it usually takes 7 to 10 days for weed control to take effect on a weed, and then it just kind of lays there or sits there in a sickly state, half dead, and then when you mow the weed, that's actually what gets rid of it. So spray the weed, give it a week and a half for the weed control to work, and then come in and mow it, and that's the key to getting rid of it. But a lot of people don't realize that. Now, another weed that's hard to control is Lespedeza, which is what this is. It looks sort of like spurge. I want to make sure this is Lespedeza. Yeah, so now if this were spurge, it would have that milky white substance in there, but this is Lespedeza. The reason this is hard to control is because it's so low-lying. So it spreads in clumps like this with runners, and it will spread and get out of control if not sprayed. But Lespedeza here, it's a broadleaf weed, And just like I mentioned, mowing is an important part of weed control. Lespedeza here grows so low to the ground, you see it's even lower than the grass blades here. Your mower blades usually don't hit it when you're cutting the grass, so that's the main reason Lespedeza is hard to control. It's actually really easy to kill once you spray it with the right products, any broadleaf weed control, but it just sticks around because it's so low lying, and the lawnmower blades don't run over it. So that's why it's really hard to get rid of. So keep that in mind if you have Lespedeza or really any weed that is low lying. Now this is spurge. You know, I just mentioned Lespedeza. Well, this is spurge, and it has that milky white substance in it, which is in the stem there. But it looks very similar to Lespedeza, but it's spurge. It's hard to kill for the same exact reason, is that it usually just lies low and your lawnmower blade never hits it. Now this grass right here has not been mowed in a very long time. It's Bermuda. You see how tall it's getting here. So the lawnmower blade might actually hit this when it's mowed, but it usually lies very low in the grass. So once you spray it, it'll turn purple, sometimes red, which is when you know that it's dying, and then you want to come in and just kind of make sure the lawnmower blade hits it to actually get rid of it. But the difference between Lespedeza and spurge is that spurge has that white milky substance in there. This is torpedo grass. If you've never seen it before, it's got a kind of looks like crabgrass. A lot of people mistake it for crabgrass, but it's very thick. It also kind of looks like St. Augustine grass if it were to spread and thicken up. I've seen some yards where torpedo grass just completely took over, and it actually doesn't look that bad when it takes over an entire yard. I mean, it just looks like a thick St. Augustine type grass, but it is a weed, and a weed is defined as whatever you don't want in your lawn. So this is a Bermuda lawn here, and we definitely don't want this torpedo grass taken over. So I sprayed Drive on this. It's a great product for torpedo grass. The next weed that is hard to kill is Virginia buttonweed. Now there are a ton of products out there that are labeled for Virginia buttonweed, but the reason I wanted to include it in this list is that it usually takes at least 2 treatments to get rid of this. You can spray it and it will visually look sick, change colors just like any other weed that you spray, but it will stick around for a very long time, and it usually takes that second treatment to really knock it out. Also, it's another low-lying weed, so when you come in and cut the grass, you're not manually mowing it away like you do most of the other weeds, so that kind of adds to the level of difficulty in killing it. So whenever you spray Virginia buttonweed, make sure you come back about 10 days later, about a week and a half later after that first treatment, and hit it again with the same product that you used the first time. This is Doveweed right here. It grows this really thick dark green color. Some people confuse it for crabgrass, but this is Doveweed here. Sometimes it produces a flower on top, but it's just a really thick dark green weed, and it's a low-lying weed, and it can really choke out your grass if you let it get out of control here. So that's Doveweed.